Hey, konnichiwa. What's good, everyone? It's your boy, Matt Diazwell, coming at you with another album review. Thanks for coming on by. Arigato. I appreciate it. Today, I am checking out a band called Saigan Terror with their album Anatomy of Saigon. Saigan Terror is a thrash slash crossover metal band based out of Tokyo, Japan. And I discovered these guys because I go to shows in Japan all the time, and they're like an older, like they've been around since I think 2019, but the guys who've been in the band, they've been playing like hardcore metal bands throughout all of like Japan's like hardcore metal like days since like the 90s and stuff. So they're like veterans for the Japan hardcore scene. And I covered this album because they were on last year's 2024 September Blood Axe Festival, and I always try to cover all those bands that are going to be at that show before I go, so I can get a sense of them and just try and promote them a little bit. So this is my chance to talk about them, promote them a little bit. They're a pretty good band that needs more recognition outside of Japan. If you're into thrashy, hardcore, and crossover style like music, you will definitely enjoy what's being presented here. And I gotta say, the anatomy of this band is simply put as this: incredibly tight drumming, really ripping riffs, thumping bass, and a good mixture of hardcore and death metal elements that all sound great, except for one thing that kind of holds this band a little bit back, I think, and that is the unrecognizable vocals. So I want to start off by talking about the biggest issue with this album, and that is the vocals. I'm sure the vocalist has some really intense and badass vocals, but for some reason, I don't know, the production, whoever's mixing and mastering this, just did a really poor job of putting his vocals on top of everything, because the drums, the guitars, the bass, everything instrumental wise sounds great, but the vocals here, they just don't really live up to the energy that's being put here, and just sound really poorly mixed and like recorded. So I think a good example of that is on the song Uncle Murder. I think it's called Uncle Murder. It's the like the first song, real song on the album. And as you listen to it, everything sounds really great, but the vocals are just so subpar that it kind of like throws everything off a bit. So here's that song. Like, everything sounds so good, but those vocals are weird. Now, vocals aside, the next thing I want to talk about is the drumming here. And it ranges from being just kind of like okay to being super tight, super groovy, and very playful. He's got some of the tightest and most interesting drum fills I've heard in like crossover thrashy style bands. And I gotta say, he really does a good job of putting his own little like style and a little bit of like not jazz, but he jazzes it up a little bit, where the drumming is very interesting to listen to. And I think a good example of that is on the song Demon Seed. He's just hitting it really hard and tight, and it just pops really well. So here's a clip of that for you. You see how those drum fills are so tight? Now, on the side of the guitars, I gotta say, they sound super crisp and clear. Like when you're listening to it, it's like you're right there in the studio, right there with them playing live, because they sound great. And they range from like really going between that whole crossover style of hardcore riffing to like more death metal style, like I guess you could say riffing as well. And I think a good example of that is on the song Lobotomy. The way that they just like do some groovy riffs and then move into some like cool guitar solos. It's quite impressive. So here's a clip of that. Everything's moving at such a lightning, like fast pace, and they're able to just go between those different styles of riffing So cool. The bass is mixed in really well on all these tracks. You can really feel the heaviness and the weight from everything. And as I was listening to it, I was like, yo, I can hear the bass, I can hear the drums, I can hear the guitars. Everything sounds really great. But why do the vocals sound like dog water? They just are not up to par of like whatever's being presented here. And so I gotta say, the best track on this whole album is the last track called, I think it's called Cow's Bringer. And it's only amazing because there's no vocals. It's just straight instrumental. So you can see, you can feel and hear how hard the band rips without any interruptions from the poorly recorded vocals. So outside of that, like all the tracks will probably be like more amazing and stunning if the vocals were recorded better. So I gotta say, this Japanese thrash hardcore band, Saigan Terror, is a great band. Great riffs, great drumming, great bass playing. Everything on here is really great except for the vocals. I don't know what happened in that department, but on this particular release, it just wasn't where it's at. So I gotta say, you know, if it wasn't for those vocals, it'd probably be a higher score. But at this moment, I would say I would give it a good and solid 8 out of 10. Dajabo? All right, thanks guys. I appreciate you coming on by. Like, subscribe, comment down below. Tell me what you think about this. And like always, I will see you in the pit.
Been thinking good things about you.